the narrative commences in the early 20th century, a period during which the British Empire has maintained control over the expansive Indian subcontinent for nearly 150 years. The territory is segmented into provinces that are directly governed by British authorities, alongside numerous princely states that exist under the indirect oversight of the British Crown, including the northern region of Jammu and Kashmir. The Indian colony serves as a significant source of wealth for the British Empire, contributing commodities such as tea, coffee, cotton, and various tax revenues. Although Portugal and France retain control over minor territories, these regions remain heavily reliant on the British colony in terms of resistance. While anti-British uprisings in the 19th century were suppressed, the early 20th century witnesses a resurgence of nationalist movements. During the First World War, approximately 1.5 million Indians are conscripted to serve on European battlefields and throughout the British Empire. Despite their loyalty and sacrifices, the post-war period does not yield improvements in their overall circumstances, leading to heightened protests against colonial governance. In response to increasingly violent repression by British forces, Mahatma Gandhi emerges as a prominent leader of resistance, advocating for non-violence and civil disobedience, which includes the boycott of British goods. The Indian National Congress takes the lead in the struggle, demanding the establishment of an independent and secular India. However, the Muslim minority in India expresses concerns about a nation dominated by Hindus. With their political representatives, the Muslim League, advocating for the formation of a separate Muslim state. WWII's Second World War commences in Europe. The British Empire dedicates all its available resources to combat Nazi Germany. Over 2.5 million Indians enlist to fight on various fronts across the globe. When the Congress Party urges the populace to refrain from participating in the war, efforts and demands the withdrawal of British forces, party leaders, and tens of thousands of civilians are incarcerated. In contrast, the Muslim League collaborates with Britain to maintain favorable relations. Britain faces challenges against Japan, which has allied with Germany, particularly after Japan's takeover of Burma. This event disrupts a crucial rice supply in the region, significantly contributing to the Bengal famine of 1943, which results in the deaths of 2 to 4 million individuals. To alleviate tensions, Britain commits to discussing India's independence following the conclusion of World War II. Independence in 1947. Britain convenes with the Congress Party and the Muslim League to negotiate the independence of the country. By this time, the divide between Hindus and Muslims has intensified to such an extent that Britain, apprehensive of a civil war, endorses the proposal to create 2 separate states. Consequently, on August 14, 1947, the Muslim nation of Pakistan is established, divided into Western and Eastern regions. The following day, August 15, 1947, the Indian Union is formed as a secular state with a significant Hindu majority. Initially, some princely states hesitate to align with either of the newly formed nations, while violence erupts between Hindus and Muslims along the newly drawn borders. This turmoil leads to the displacement of millions of individuals who migrate from one country to another based on their religious identity. In the southern region, Britain continues to hold Ceylon for several months. Despite ongoing conflicts between Hindus and Buddhists, Jammu and Kashmir, Hindu Maharaja of the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir, which has a predominantly Muslim population, initially refrains from aligning with either India or Pakistan. when Pakistani forces cross the border in an effort to capture the state. The Maharaja seeks military support from India in return for his state's integration into the nation. This request marks the onset of the First Indo-Pakistan War. Following 2 years of conflict, the United Nations intervenes to broker a ceasefire and establishes a temporary boundary. However, this boundary remains incomplete due to the presence of the Siachen Glacier in the northeastern region, which is largely uninhabited and difficult to access. Both nations lay claim to this territory. The largest democracy in the world, India evolves into a federal parliamentary republic, with 171 million citizens eligible to participate in the inaugural elections. Amidst the global division caused by the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States, India chooses a path of neutrality by adopting a non-aligned stance. This decision fosters closer diplomatic relations with various African and Asian nations. Nevertheless, a visit by the Indian Prime Minister to the USSR signifies a warming of relations between the two countries, a development that does not sit well with China following China's annexation of Tibet and the subsequent flight of the Dalai Lama to India. Tensions between the two nations escalate. China does not acknowledge the McMahon Line established by Britain in 1914, which delimits the eastern boundary of India and asserts its claim over the Kashmir region. In 1962, China launched an attack on India, swiftly seizing control of 2 territories. Following this, China announced a unilateral ceasefire, maintaining its hold over Asai Chin while withdrawing from Arunachal Pradesh, though it did not recognize the established border. Subsequently, China strengthened its diplomatic relations with Pakistan during the Second Indo-Pakistani War. Pakistan sought to exploit India's defeat by China. Pakistani soldiers, disguised as civilians, infiltrated Indian-controlled areas of Kashmir, inciting the local Muslim population to revolt. The Indian military's response to this infiltration ignited the Second Indo-Pakistani conflict, with both nations attempting to invade each other's territories. However, as Indian forces advanced perilously close to Lahore, China issued a warning of potential intervention on behalf of Pakistan. The United Nations intervened, facilitating a ceasefire and a return to the boundaries that existed prior to the conflict. In 1970, a separatist party in East Pakistan achieved a significant electoral victory. In retaliation, the Pakistani military intervened, brutally suppressing movements for independence. This led to millions of civilians, predominantly from the Hindu minority, fleeing to India for safety. India enters into a military cooperation treaty with the Soviet Union and, in reaction to airstrikes by Pakistan in northern India, takes action to remove Pakistani forces from East Pakistan. Subsequently, the United States intervenes on behalf of Pakistan to facilitate a ceasefire. Bangladesh emerges as a newly recognized, independent nation, while Pakistan experiences a decline in its strength. 3 years later, India astonishes the global community by conducting its inaugural nuclear tests, raising international alarm. Separatist movements increasingly challenge India, as groups from Assam, Sikh, and Kashmir advocate for independence. Sikhs, adherents of Sikhism, a monotheistic faith that originated in the 15th century, predominantly reside in Punjab, where a radical faction resorts to armed conflict to seek the region's independence. This group seizes control of the Golden Temple, the most revered site in Sikh. Following unsuccessful negotiations, the Indian army assaults the temple to dislodge the militants. In retaliation, Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi is assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards, leading to widespread riots between Sikhs and Hindus. Ultimately, the rise of moderate Sikhs to power in Punjab helps to stabilize the situation in Sri Lanka. A civil war erupts between an armed separatist faction from the Hindu Tamil minority and the predominantly Buddhist Sinhalese government. India, home to a significant Tamil population, lends support to its Tamil counterparts during the conflict, including airdropping supplies to besieged urban areas. Eventually, a ceasefire is negotiated between India and Sri Lanka. The latter is required to accept certain Tamil demands in return for India deploying a peacekeeping force to assist in resolving the civil conflict. Initially, extensive military operations were not anticipated. However, the Indian army becomes involved in a series of confrontations with Tamil separatists. This escalation leads the Sri Lankan government to ultimately request the withdrawal of the Indian military from its territory. In 1992, right-wing Hindu groups demolish the Babri Masjid Mosque, a structure from the 16th century, which they assert is situated on a site of religious significance for Hindus. This act provokes outrage among Muslims and exacerbates existing religious tensions within the nation. Violent attacks ensue, marking the first instance of terrorist bombings impacting the city of Mumbai. India holds Pakistan accountable for these attacks, a claim that Pakistan refutes. Both nations proceed to conduct nuclear tests, resulting in widespread international condemnation and sanctions. In Kashmir, Pakistani militants infiltrate into Indian territory, prompting a swift response from the Indian Army, which successfully re-establishes control over the region in contemporary times. Following the September 11th attacks, the United States and India enhanced their collaboration in combating Islamist terrorism originating from Pakistan. Concurrently, China fortifies its alliance with Pakistan. Several Indian cities experienced terrorist attacks, with the most notorious being the Mumbai attacks in November 2008. Despite various efforts to achieve a diplomatic breakthrough, relations between India and Pakistan remain strained, primarily due to the ongoing dispute over Kashmir.